Chapter 5047. WN Dao Jian Zun. For nearly 20,000 years, the rumors about Kui Jing, the third in charge of the Wangu Wushuang auction house, have already overshadowed the other two. Nothing else, all because of bloodthirsty and warlike. After 20,000 years, WNGU Wushuang auction house has long since become an existence above the universe, and even the background of some super-universe is incomparable. Because it is the background of the Emperor, the background of the Emperor of the Six Crows, that supports the Eternal Warriors auction house. One Emperor pin pill is enough to drive the mobilization of a super-universe. As the third in command of the WNGU Wushuang auction house, Kui Jing, his bloodthirsty and belligerence have been proved in the battle 10,000 years ago. Facing the offensives of several super-universes and dozens of immortals, he fought battles to the last moment, and he stubbornly supported the reinforcements. And when the injury had not fully recovered, he was alone, and the Starry Night rushed to help, destroying the two super-universes with his own power. Among them, more than 10 Yangxian, as well as countless Dingxiu creatures, all died in the void and escaped. He cut off the heads of the two heavenly domain masters, and brought them back to the eternal unparalleled world together with their immortal sources for auction, with a reserve price of 1 heaven crystal. That is to say, from that battle, nearly 100 heavens have known Kui Jing's name. Right now, he was standing in the middle of the temple, with his black and gold uniforms floating around, looking at Shang Juanzong with a smile. All Yangxian looked at Kui Jing's gaze, unconsciously feeling the coolness in his neck, and the head auction that took place 10,000 years ago seems to be vivid. My son, hurry up. The elder Yangxian was extremely nervous and urgent. He didn't know how much the WNGU Wushuang auction house had, so avoiding Sanshi was the most important thing. However, Shang Junzong's son was still in a confrontational state, his clear eyes were extremely cold. Kui Jinglan was able to warn him, and turned his head directly, give the bag to Qingling and let her count. Young Master Jiyu Haicheng reacted, nodded hurriedly, and handed the bag in Qingling's hands. Qingling took it, opened the napkin to investigate for a while, then leaned slightly and said, "My lord, there are exactly 1.2 billion Black Mountain spars in the bag, which is accurate." Kui Jing nodded when he heard the words, turned around and prepared to leave. But then, a cold voice sounded, "Wang Jiyu Wushuang is really a big deal. What I want to ask is the buyer of this pill, Jiyu Haicheng, or an auction house that is unparalleled in the past?" The entire temple was silent, and all the gods and the masters of the heavens stared at this scene. As long as Yangxian, who is not blind, can see that the 1.2 billion Heishan spar can only be sent out by the eternally unparalleled auction house. Even if ancient Sea City is a super-universe spanning 13 horizons, it is absolutely impossible to have 1.2 billion Black Mountain spars. The result is self-evident. Moreover, there is another metaphor for Kui Jing's gift of 1.2 billion Black Mountain spar under the public. Kui Jing represents the Wangu Wushuang auction house. He dared to donate 1.2 billion Black Mountain spar in public, which shows that he is giving back to Jiyu Haicheng's help 10,000 years ago. This is also a signal to all the immortals present and the Lord of the Heavenly Territory, as long as they have helped WNGU Wushuang will naturally give back 10 times, 100 times. Therefore, this is a show without cover. Sister Literature Network, however, when the son of Shang Juanzong said it, it didn't look so good. Kui Jing stopped, and a strange smile suddenly appeared on his cold face. He turned around and said in a low voice, "Of course the purchaser of the pills is Jiyu Haicheng, haven't you seen all of this?" The Lord Shang Juanzong smiled slightly when he heard the words, "So it turns out, but Jiyu Haicheng bought the Heishan spar of Pil Maru. It seems that it was provided by Eternal Warrior, right? If it was provided by WNGU Wushuang, what is the point of releasing this pill?" As soon as this remark came out, there was a noise in the temple. All the elders Yangxian in Guhai City had their dignified eyes, ready to fight at any time. Kui Jing smiled. This pill was indeed taken by Guhaicheng. As for the Heishan spar, it was sent to the auction house by the elders of Guhaicheng in advance. Why, don't you believe it? The noise faded away and Fatat. Wait, how should I believe it? Shang Junzong's son said with a slight smile. At this moment, Kui Jing laughed wantonly. Why should I make you believe? I didn't say it to make you believe, but to tell you that you don't believe it. Lord Shang Junzong's eyes were clear for an instant, and a cold light burst out. My son, let's go. The elder whispered to persuade. This is an eternal matchless person. Don't fall into dispute. The cold light in his eyes disappeared, and Lord Shang Junzong suddenly smiled. It seems that this eternal matchless place is not a clean place, filthy and messy. As soon as these words came out, all Yangxian looked horrified, and Shang Junzong wanted to confront Wangu Wushuang. Kui Jing's expression was also cold for a moment, but he still suppressed the anger in his heart, and then looked at him. What's your name? All the elders of Shang Junzong were shocked. One of the oldest elders directly trembled and threw his hands over. Master Kui, my prince is still young and vigorous. If you run into an adult, please. Without finishing a sentence, Lord Shang Junzong stopped him directly, and then condensedly said, I am the son of Lord Shangjuan, Qin Tuo. Qin Tuo, it's a good name. Kui Jing suddenly clapped his hands and smiled. It's just that, do you think you should say this name yourself, or should it be engraved on your tombstone? The Lord Shang Junzong named Qin Tuo heard this, his eyes condensed suddenly, and he couldn't help but step back. Kui Jing smiled disdainfully, and then he was about to leave in big strides. And Qin Tuo, who realized his gaffe, felt that his face was lost in an instant, and he was angrily said, What kind of thing are you, a small auction house? Dare I fight against Junzong? As soon as this statement came out, the audience was in an uproar, and more than half of Yangxian looked at Qin Tuo meaningfully. Shang Junzong is one of the top super universes in the entire Big Division domain. Yukanshu. Com is indeed true, and it can almost sweep half of the ordinary universe. But this time, they hit the iron plate, a terrifying force that wiped out more than a dozen super universes 10,000 years ago, and the consequences were beyond their ability to contend. Kui Jing stopped his figure and wore black gold uniforms without any wind. The next moment, he suddenly turned around, and hit Qin Tuo's chest with a kick at an unimaginable speed. Boom! He flew upside down 10 feet, slammed his back heavily on the jade wall, and stopped the rout. The heavenly hall was dead, and all Yangxians were shocked. No Yangxian thought that Kui Jinghui kicked the son of Shang Junzong without any scruples. In order to facilitate the next reading, you can click favorites below to record the reading record of this time, chapter 50-51, behind the scenes, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Sword Sovereign of 10,000 Ways, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 50-48. Wn Dao Jian Zun. Falling this foot is equivalent to kicking on the face of the entire Shang Junzong, and in front of so many masters of the universe, it is impossible to deal with the aftermath. But it was Kui Jing who kicked this kick. His bloodthirsty and belligerence made all the gods present and even the masters of the heavens dare not fight to be the first bird. The elder Yangxian of Shang Junzong reacted, daring to glare at Kui Jing without saying a word, and then flew to Qin Tuo. Young sect master. At this moment, Qin Tuo changed his laziness and coldness, his eyes were only covered with humiliation and anger. The evolving power that belonged to the peak of elixir erupted, and instantly swept the entire temple. And the elders of Yangxian in Shangjunzong were all bloody. Seeing the humiliation of young sect master, they all showed their Yanli power and were ready to fight. All the fairy elders in Guhai City are also ready to go, unleashing their power and confronting each other. With black hair dancing wildly, Qin Tuo was already on the verge of rage. Kui Jing was still smiling but not smiling, as if watching a ridiculous thing. In the next moment, a more powerful and shocking force, like the torrent of the Tianhe River, suddenly came down from above the temple. This kind of derivation is extremely terrifying, and every celestial genius feels threatened at the moment of falling, and those with a slightly weaker stage will not even be able to operate freely. When the Lord of Heaven reacted, their complexions changed slightly, sitting on pins and needles, as if being targeted. When the fairy Yang who was hiding in the dark appeared, all the masters of the heavens breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Qing. Chen Qing was the one who released the power to overwhelm the heroes of the palace. He is the second in command of the entire Wangu Wushuang auction house. He was originally Yangxian, but in the battle 10,000 years ago, he realized his own immortal style and killed several superworld masters and let him be fight to become famous. There are rumors that he is only a short distance from Dianxian, and there are even rumors that he is already Dianxian. At this moment, as soon as he appeared, all the elders of Shangjuanzong were ashamed and did not dare to confront anymore. Ancient Sea City, which belongs to the same super-universe, is watching from the sidelines. If once the fight is really started, Shangjuanzong has no chance of winning. A group of clowns who dare to say that I am unparalleled and unparalleled. The voice with uncontrollable anger resounded from Chen Qing's mouth. He stepped down in the air, the real sword at his waist was already out of its sheath, with thousands of sword intent, hovering directly on the head of every elder Yangxian of Shangjuanzong without any worries. As long as Chen Qing's heart moves, he can directly hit them badly. Qin Tuo retreated, already waking up from his anger. He knew soberly that Shangjuanzong had no chance of winning here. Chen Qing and Kui Jing stood up, all looking at them with a smile. At this moment, a Yangxian took a step forward, stood in front of Qin Tuo, and said in a condensed voice, "Master Chen, Master Kui, there is no need to say such a death. The heavenly sect, who is waiting for one, may not have a day to meet in the future. It's a joke. Are you threatening us with your momentum?" Chen Qing took a step forward with a deep and cold expression. "Has said you have one Shangjuanzong, or 10 Shangjuanzong, and you won't be able to make any climate, you." The elder Yangxian was speechless for a while, his face was alternately blue and red, and he almost vomited blood from the mouth. However, Qin Tuo, who was in a state of anger, calmed down. After taking a deep look at Chen Qing, Kui Jing and the others, he directly led the elders away. Chen Qing did not stop them too much and allowed them to leave. Hot novels afterwards, young Master Jiyu Haicheng led a group of elders to give salutes, with a lower and respectful posture. Jiyu Haicheng had no advantage over Shangjuanzong, and could not even protect the Emperor Pin Pill at all. But after Jiyu Wushuang stepped in, he not only pulled his face, but also let a Pin Pill fall into the bag. This was already the optimal solution. Seeing this scene, all the immortals and the masters of the heavens in the heavenly hall showed a meaningful expression. Chen Qing smiled, "You don't have to be polite. No one can take away the one who promised you ancient sea city. What should be yours is yours." Qing Ling breathed a sigh of relief, secretly lamenting the disasters of Eternal Warrior's auction house. In an invisible place, in the space at the highest level of the Wangu Wushuang auction house, a thin, but with impressive young man Yangxian slowly closed his eyes. He seemed extremely tired. As long as there was a moment of relaxation, he didn't want to open his eyes, as if he hadn't slept for a long time. The Wangu Wushuang auction, which opened in 500 years, has ended, and Yangxian and the masters of the universe have withdrawn in turn. Although it is over, the real undercurrent is about to begin. In the Wangu Wushuang auction house, the treasure won will be protected, and once you leave, you will not receive any protection. In the past 20,000 years, the killing of immortals and treasures has been constantly happening. Although the probability is small, it will also happen. After all, the treasure of the eternal unparalleled is enough to drive the immortal crazy. At this moment, all the people in the ancient sea city carrying the Emperor Pills have changed their faces, left the eternal unparalleled, and swept towards the endless void. They want to reach the ancient sea city as quickly as possible. After all, it has changed after Kai, and no one knows how many Yangxians are staring in the dark. At the same time, they have all prepared for the worst. The Emperor Pin Pill is carried by the young sect master, and if there is an irresistible robbery, they will directly swallow the pill. A line of more than 10 evangelists, like meteors, are extremely fast, spanning large and small universes, and their figures are secret. But as they continued to move forward, deep in the dim void, all the elder Yangxian in ancient sea city changed their complexion slightly, and seemed to feel a great crisis. "No, young master, I'm afraid I will suffer an accident." The young man of Guhaicheng has a deep mood. At the next moment, it seemed to be to confirm all the elders' thoughts, the void that was originally dotted with boundless stars suddenly showed a dark red color. It was like scarlet lava, cracking the void, forming hundreds of thousands of terrifying lines, and overturning it. All the elder Yangxian in Guhai City turned around and looked around. I saw a terrifying figure with crimson power flowing all over the body coming out of the void. Following his footsteps, the void oscillated, and the wind of the void was crushed into powder. Chin Tuor. The sky is clear and bright, and the bright day hangs high. Two figures with powerful fairy rhyme flowing around their bodies, walking quickly through the clouds. It seems that there is something extremely important. Fengshan, who was like a sacred mountain meat shield, was still sleepy and seemed to fall asleep again at any time. And beside him was Wei Liujia, dressed in a black cloak of flowing clouds and anxious. Because he was too anxious, his right hand was between the two fingers, and there was even a bright star in between. In order to facilitate the next reading, you can click the favorites below to record the reading record of this time, Chapter 50-52, Void Robbery, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Sword Sovereign of 10,000 Ways, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 50-49, Star Chess. Taking the stars as chess and obsession as the chessboard, deduces the vitality of all things. At this moment, Wei Liujia has already deduced the most unlikely result. What he has to do now is to see the truth. Liujia, are you stunned? I am afraid that the eldest brother may not be back in 100,000 years. Didn't Xiao Dijuan say clearly at the beginning, the eldest brother will not come back again? Fengshan scratched his head and muttered, as if he didn't want to believe it. After all, after 20,000 years, they were all forced to accept reality. Unexpectedly, after hearing these words, Wei Liujia, who rarely lost his temper, exploded his dirty mouth for the first time. Don't listen to him farting. Do you believe me or him? Ken, I must believe you. Fengshan scratched his head again. But, are you really sure? We just have to take a look. Wei Liujia said in a condensed voice, I have a hunch that Brother Jian will definitely be in Shaogushan. Fengshan's body was shocked, and his figure jumped out in an instant. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go. It has been more than 20,000 years since Jian Wushuang quietly left, and Xiao Gutian has been in dust for nearly 20,000 years. As the celestial official who had been rectified by the son of the second emperor, Zhao Ting quietly left thousands of years after Jian Wushuang had disappeared. But Chuanqiu, Chen Qing, Kui Jing, Wei Liujia, Fengshan, the five have never left. Even if they instinctively told them Jian Wushuang will not return, they are still waiting. Wei Liujia created the Pavilion of Stars and performed deductions all day long, and Fengshan followed him closely. In the spring and autumn period, Chen Qing, Kui Jing and others have built the Wangu Wushuang auction house into a giant. Everything is changing, only the grass and trees of Xiao Gutian are covered in dust, just waiting for that figure to return. Standing outside the immutable Shaogushan, Wei Liujia stopped, took a deep breath, and waved his hand to unlock the secret seal of circulation. Familiar scenes greeted my eyes, triggering endless reveries. Every plant and tree is as long as it was 10,000 years ago, with long ups and downs. In the next moment, both of his figures went straight to the center of Xiao Gutian. There, Jian Wushuang's temple. The temple is magnificent, fairy rhyme flows, order flows, and nothing has changed. With the soles of the feet landing, Wei Liujia and Fengshan once again stood in the Tianjin Square after more than 10,000 years. Looking at the heavenly temple shrouded in smoke, Wei Liujia had a strong intuition for no reason. He raised his right hand, looked at the star in his palm, and then strode into the temple. The dust-covered Tianmen opens again, and everything remains the same. Wei Liujia stood outside the gate of the palace in a daze, with a slight backlash. Fengshan swallowed his throat and froze in place, not knowing whether to move forward or back. 6. Liujia, you said the boss is back. It looks like I was wrong. He spoke slowly, his eyes gloomy. In the palace of heaven, there is solemnity and order, and only Yangxian set foot. Fengshan, let's go. Wei Liujia turned around and was about to leave. Fengshan didn't say much, and they were ready to accept a result that would not produce results. The next moment, the order fluctuated, and the familiar voice quietly sounded. Liujia, Fengshan, you are here. Both of them trembled, stopped, and looked at each other. Then they turned around and looked. Wearing a plain white shirt, although his complexion was a little languid, his eyes were extremely attractive. He slowly walked out from the depths of the hall, smiling. "Boss. Big brother sword. Get together again," and the last point of restraint disappears. Fengshan was the first to bear the brunt and rushed towards Jian Wushuang like a bull. Wei Liujia didn't let go either, and followed him with a flash. Jian Wushuang only felt black in front of him, and he was almost squeezed into his arms to breathe. "Stop, stop, I can't breathe anymore." This hug lasted for a long time, until Wei Liujia saw something was wrong and pushed Fengshan away, so that Jian Wushuang would not be strangled. "Big brother Jian, are you injured?" Wei Liujia stared at Jian Wushuang. He was keenly aware of the changes. Coughing a few times softly, Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly. "This is a long story. It's not easy to talk about it now. I will tell you about it in the future." Wei Liujia nodded. He vaguely knew that Jian Wushuang had left because he had gone to a dangerous place to search for ditching. The injury he suffered now is probably inseparable from the dangerous place. But none of this is important. The important Jian Wushuang has come back with all his tales. This is more exciting than any news. Fengshan was extremely excited. "Boss, wait here, I will call Chen Qing and the others." Jian Wushuang waved his hand and said, "No, it's not a big deal for me to come back. It won't be a big fanfare. You have your own things to do." Wei Liujia still wanted to say something, but at this moment, another figure walked out from the depths of the temple. The 6 eyes are facing each other, and the air is heavy. Wearing a plain suit and holding a jade bowl, Xiao Dejuan froze in place. His eyes trembled slightly. He had never thought that it would be such a scene. Besides Jian Wushuang, there are actually 2 Yangtzeans. For a while, he didn't know what to do, holding the jade bowl and froze in place. Wei Liujia and Fengshan came back to their senses and looked at Jian Wushuang meaningfully. Then, Wei Liujia teased, "Maybe, we are not here at the right time." Jian Wushuang didn't know, so he shook his head and said, "No, you are here at the right time." At this moment, outside the Temple of Heaven, bursts of violent skimming sounded. Then, 3 powerful figures with fairy rhyme all around appeared. They are Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Kui Jing. In the past 20,000 years, the mortal world has already gone through the sea, but for the immortals, it is just a light dream. They all smile when they face each other. "Long time no see." Jian Wushuang waved and smiled. "Just come back, brother Jian." Chen Qing strode forward and solemnly arched his hands. Chun Qiu and Kui Jing also stepped forward and solemnly bowed their hands. "You don't need to be cautious. How did you know that I came back?" Jian Wushuang asked with a smile with a clear heart. Chun Qiu smiled slightly and pointed to his heart. Kui Jing also smiled. "Brother Jian, you will be fine if you come back. Now we finally don't have to worry about where you are." After nearly 20,000 years, they got together again, and all Yangtzeans laughed. Only the little emperor, who was holding the jade bowl, looked sad. After a while, he placed the jade bowl in his hand on the case slip on one side and turned to enter the depths of the temple. Seeing the familiar face, Jian Wushuang's state of mind was very good. "You are both diligent in your respective realms. After a while, you should be able to set foot in the realm of Dian Immortal, right?" Upon hearing this, they all looked at Chen Qing. Chen Qing is the longest existence in the realm of immersion and generation, and among them, apart from Jian Wushuang, he is the first to master the immortal generation. Chapter 50-50. Wn Dao Jianzun. Only one line from Zhenxian is his current situation. Seeing all eyes converging on him, Chen Qing scratched his head and smirked. "About 10,000 years ago, I had understood my own fairy style, but I am afraid that there is still a line of distance from Dian Fairyland. This line of separation will probably have troubled me for a long time." Jian Wushuang heard the words, "Can't even those imperial grade pills help you break through?" Chen Qing said, "I have tried several times, but most of them have little effect. Although the DI pin pill is powerful enough to break through the shackles, it seems that there is some obstacle to making a breakthrough, which is very strange." Jian Wushuang didn't speak, but thought. Although he had realized the immortal style early, but due to his own reasons, he could not perceive the realm of cultivation leading to Dian immortal. At the same time, he also thought that there was something wrong with the scarcity of Dian immortals in this big division. Could it be that the upward road has been blocked? Then, Jian Wushuang looked at Chun Qiu and the others. The result was soon obtained. In addition to Chen Qing, Chun Qiu has also mastered his own fairy style. Fengshan had already realized the immortal style, although Qi Jing and Wei Liujia had not yet, but it was only a matter of time. This is already a force that cannot be underestimated. Even if it is some super universe in the big division domain, it may be difficult to fight. Jian Wushuang sighed slightly. After thousands of years of development, they have all grown up. Although there is still a distance from Dian immortal, they are already enough to gain a foothold in the big division. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little low, Qi Jing smiled and said, "Don't talk about it, Brother Jian is only coming back, and our brothers will pick up the dust for you first." As soon as this remark came out, Chen Qing and the others clamored. "Brother Sword, the good wine I hid is waiting for today. Let's not get drunk or return today. Yes, I haven't seen each other for nearly 20,000 years, let's not get drunk today. Never get drunk or return." Several sacred men directly clamped Jian Wushuang, and almost lifted him up. And Jian Wushuang also smiled. After all, it took 10,000 years to get together, and it was already a long time. However, at this moment, a slightly cold voice came from the depths of the temple. "Don't drink, other things are free." Jian Wushuang shrugged, and then signaled that he was still recovering from a serious illness. Chen Qing and the others looked at each other, grinned, and then grabbed him and rushed directly to Wei Lujia's gazing pavilion. Stargazing pavilion. It was a dome pavilion that Wei Liujia started to create after Jian Wushuang disappeared. It is more appropriate to say that it is a dome tower than it is to say that it is a small space that is large enough to hold everything. The stargazing pavilion was built by Wei Lujia's heart, and it is close to Shaogushan, like a corona. And thanks to the blessings of Chen Qing and others, ordinary external forces can't forcibly break in at all. It is a top-secret place. And right now, in this stargazing pavilion, 6 evangelists gathered. "Come and come, my wine is my favorite collection. I will never take it out during the normal season, but now is the best time." Above the eaves of the Guanxing pavilion, 6 Yangtzeans sat on the eaves at will, looking far away, full of distant rivers and waters. With a meaningful smile on his face, Chen Qing took out a pot of fine wine from his waist. Error-free novel. Although the hip flask is small, you can feel it when you start it, and it is no less than 10,000 catties. Jian Wushuang didn't doubt that he was there. He raised his head and took a sip of the liquor, and his expression became weird. Even after nearly 20,000 years, he still tasted the liquor in the pot in one sip, which was exactly the same as the chewing wine he had encountered before. That was an interesting event in a mortal universe that he and Chen Qing passed through when they first rushed to the North Changxianzhu of young Master Mo. The so-called chewing wine is to chew the koji in the mouth of a beauty, make it ferment, and then form a unique and sweet wine. If it weren't for Jian Wushuang to know the doorway, then the liquor in this hand could indeed be called a fine wine, and it was comparable to Shenzhou. However, he happened to know the strangeness of this, so he didn't dare to take a second sip. At the same time, what made Jian Wushuang dumbfounded was that after nearly 20,000 years, the mortal universe may not know how many reincarnations have gone through, and Chen Qing still has so many chewing wines. Watching Chuanqiu, Qi Jing and the others were all drinking, Jian Wushuang hadn't fully recovered from his injuries because of the excuse, so he could not drink, so he flashed aside. Standing on the roof of the stargazing pavilion, looking at the distant rivers and rivers in the distance, he was extremely happy. This side of the small world, except for the absence of spiritual aura, the rest are extremely suitable for practicing enlightenment. Jian Wushuang has even decided to sit here for a while. The clouds are rolling and the sun is bright. But at this moment, Jian Wushuang's eyes were quietly sharp for a moment. His gaze was steep from the big sun in the clouds. The sun is bright and emits a soft color. But at the edge of the big sun, it exudes a slight reddish color, which is extremely strange. This light red color does not belong to generative power, and it has a certain power to confuse and cannibalize the state of mind. Although it is extremely small, it still makes Jian Wushuang aware of it for the first time. He thought for a moment, then waved his hand to dissuade Chen Qing and the others who were still drinking. Have you found anything? Following Jian Wushuang's fingers, Chen Qing, Chun Qiu and others all looked at the big sun above the sky. Soon, their faces became weird. Tens of thousands of years of fighting, blood seas running, so that they are no longer comparable to ordinary celestial development. Naturally, their exploration of crises is far beyond ordinary celestial development. Chen Qing first came back to his senses and looked at Wei Liujia. Liujia, this is your realm. You won't be targeted by anyone, right? Wei Liujia looked blank. No, I haven't been out for nearly 20,000 years, except for helping the Eternal Unparalleled. Then what's going on with this vision? Fengshan asked in confusion, rubbing his chin. Wei Liujia knew that it was not easy. Hurriedly started to play the star chessboard on the top of the Guanxing pavilion. One after another, the chess was settled, and the whole chessboard was shaking uneasily. Wei Liujia's complexion became increasingly ugly. Above the sky, the big sun was already covered by a kind of light red, bloodshot like a spiderweb. It's not good, it's eternally unparalleled. Wei Liujia suddenly raised his head, his complexion changed drastically. Fucking, there are still unrestricted daring to make unparalleled ideas now? Chen Qing burst out, already furious to the extreme. Let's go. Chun Qiu let out a low cry, ready to rush to help. Wait a minute, Jian Wushuang stopped them and said with a slight smile, I will go and take a look with you. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorites below to record the reading record of this time, chapter 50-54. Dark Night is coming, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Sword Sovereign of 10,000 Ways, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 50-51. The void shattered and the stars returned. Everything is in silence. The 6 bodies, like meteors, shuttled through the void, galloping forward. The leaders are Chen Qing and Chun Qiu. Damn thing, what is this? Chen Qing cursed with a gloomy expression. I saw that the more we moved forward, the more fragmented the void became, as if we had experienced an unprecedented battle. As far as the eye can see, they are all fragmented, and on the edge of the void crack, there is a depressive atmosphere flowing. That kind of breath was dark red, like a river of blood, unable to speak. Let me catch it, cramp and peel it, and bury it under the temple as a cornerstone, Kui Jing said fiercely, killing in the depths of his eyes. I hope eternal warriors will hold on for a while. Chun Qiu was a little worried. The next moment, a weak wave swept from the depths of the void. Chen Qing stretched out his hand to cover it, directly restrained the weak fluctuation, and then dragged it over. Jiyu, the ancient pavilion of Guhai City. Seeing the figure that looked like a blood gourd in his hand, Chen Qing was completely shocked to the point of indescribable. Jiyu Ting? How could he make it like this? Kui Jingxiu stepped forward, and after seeing that it was Jiyu Ting, he was equally shocked. It looks like it should have been intercepted halfway. Chun Qiu frowned. Wei Liujia thought, I wonder if it will be Shong Juanzong. Look at him in large numbers and small ones, you see how I crush them into powder. Fengshan slammed his fists, shouting shockingly. At this time, Gutting, the son of Guhaicheng, who was being carried by Chen Qing, woke up from his coma. As soon as he saw Chen Qing and the others, he showed the look of the rest of his life, and his eyes were gloomy. Chen, Master Chen, the pills have been taken away, and all the elders of my ancient sea city have also fallen. Upon hearing this, Chen Qing immediately sank and asked, who did this? How about Wangu Wushuang auction house? Yes, it's Shong Juanzong, Qin Tuo. Jiyu Ting gritted his teeth and said bitterly, he has already rushed over here. Chen Qing was furious, and Yang Li surged, damn, this guy is looking for death. But Chuanqiu, who has always been extremely quiet, looked at Jiyu Ting and said indifferently, did you attract him? Jiyu Ting trembled, shock flashed in his eyes, and finally he said, Master Chun, we were intercepted and killed by Shangzhenzong midway, and we were not able to return to the sky. Only if we escape back to eternal warriors can we have a ray of life. So far we have escaped here. I am the only one left. Chun Chiu interrupted with a wave of his hand, and then said, "This matter, Ujiu Haicheng will give an account in the future. What we need to do now is to obliterate Qin Tuo. Unparalleled." At this moment, the big sun above the sky has overturned and was replaced by a huge blood moon. The void is shattered, and several heavens have been destroyed. And the eternal unparalleled auction house built on a heavenly plane was already on the verge of destruction. A dark river of blood tore the earth, rushing wildly, swallowing all visible objects. The plane was shattering, and the behemoth at the center of the heavenly plane, the eternal warrior, was now surrounded by a river of dark blood. With Qingling as the leader, nearly 10 Yangtzeans stationed here are resisting bitterly. She had just been promoted to the immortal, and her realm was not yet stable, so it was too difficult to bear such a terrifying shock. But she never stepped back, releasing her strength and resisting bitterly. What is even more frightening is that Qingling doesn't know who the enemy is, because this kind of heaven and earth vision appears almost instantaneously, and then everything becomes passive. The dark river of blood rushed freely, turning into blood dragons that shook the sky and the earth, rushing towards the heaven of the eternal unparalleled auction house. Damn, what are these things? Who would use this moment to move hands? Qingling gritted her teeth, already extremely angry. Beside her, a middle-aged Yangxian also gritted his teeth and resisted. "Fairy Qingling, you go first, and quickly invite Master Chun and the others to come over. We will stand here for a while." "Impossible, I'm leaving, I can't resist it anymore." Qingling shook her head resolutely. "But if this continues, we must not be able to hold it." The middle-aged Yangxian couldn't help but said, the long sword in his hand had been concealed by the dark bloodstains, and the power was gone. "That can't be retired," Qingling said quietly. Thousands of azure green horses burst out of her palm, turning into the strongest enchantment, covering the entire eternal unparalleled palace. Roar! There was a loud and thorough bang that tore through the chaos and darkness. The endless river of blood gushes from the depths of the earth, and it continues to condense into a billion-meter-long snake. The thick blood dripped from the gaps in every scale. A pair of blood pupils, vertical pupils shining like a blood sun. It is too huge, even though the eternal unparalleled temple, it is a bit small in front of it. The order collapses, the universe is destroyed, everything is in chaos. At this moment, the eternal warrior's heaven palace is like Yi Guizhou, struggling to support it, and it may capsize at any time. Of the nearly 10 Yangxian who originally stationed here, 3 have already died. Facing the flood snake composed of a dark river of blood, all Yangxian faces were ashes. As long as one round of the blood river hits, the temple of heaven will be unprotected. I'm afraid they can't resist. The middle-aged Yangxian bit her teeth and looked at Qingling on the side, and he wanted to send her out of here. But the next moment, the sky of chaos trembles suddenly, followed by a burst of loud shouts. All Yangxian's eyes converged on the sky. There, a sacred mountain-like figure, like the afterglow of the setting sun, slammed heavily on the giant head of the snake. Boom! The blood burst out, and there was an incomparable dying explosion. The blood river flood snake roared wildly, its entire head was almost penetrated, and one of its vertical pupil snake eyes was broken. The huge body weighed heavily in the river of blood. "Quickly enter the hall," Qingling yelled, and the few remaining Yangxian all entered the hall quickly, and then closed the gate of heaven. The blood river roared, and the plane of collapsed. The blood river flood snake that was pierced through its head fell heavily into the blood river, rolling up billions of blood waves, covering the sky and the sun. "I think it is something, it turns out to be a chopstick too." Fengshan shook his figure, shaking off the blood on his shoulders, and spitting in disdain. But in this moment, Chen Qing's scream suddenly resounded, "Fengshan, go back." "Huh?" Fengshan was puzzled, and was about to speak, but was shocked to realize that a huge flood snake had condensed in the river of blood below him. It opened the mouth of blood that swallowed the sky, and spit out an endless river of blood at Fengshan. Because this was so fast, Fengshan was already swallowed when Chen Qing and others arrived. As far as I can see, Even the heavenly temple of the unparalleled auction house is unavoidable to sink into a river of blood. Chapter 50-52. Chen Qing halted his feet, flared his 5 fingers, and shot out 10,000 ray of light in an instant. Huamang is like the sharpest arrow, tearing through the void, rushing towards the blood river snake. Puff puff. The endless blood mist exploded, and the blood river flood snake opened its mouth and roared. With this roar, Fengshan's sacred mountain-like figure escaped from the huge mouth embarrassedly. Mother, it's dangerous. Fengshan's face was pale, with a big taboo. What is this? Chen Qing and the others also arrived, staring at the river of blood beneath them, and they all had a bad feeling. Kui Jing held the Xian stick in his hand and slapped his lips and said, I didn't let Brother Jian come, is it a bit? It's okay, let's see how I demolished this place. Fengshan rubbed his hands and rushed down with a low growl. Chen Qing and Kui Jing also urged their figures and rolled down together. Chun Qiu stared at the restored ancient pavilion, this river of blood. This blood river is the incarnation of Qin Tuo. Ji Yu Ting confirmed without hesitation, he was the incarnation of the blood river before and swallowed all the elders in my ancient sea city. Hearing the words, Wei Liujia touched his chin, it shouldn't be. From the previous performance, Shong Juanzong seems quite magnificent. Right now, this blood river seems to be quite inconsistent with their performance. Chun Qiu glanced at him, then said quietly, often the more magnificent the surface, the more unbearable it is behind the back. Don't be fooled by the appearance. It makes sense, then let's. To protect eternal warriors with all your strength, and to cut the roots. Boom. Gathering Chen Qing, Kui Jing, Chun Qiu, and Wei Liujia with the full blow of the 4 immortals, the billions of blood sea snakes were directly smashed into pieces, cut off the spirit, and fell miserably into the tossing blood. In the sea of blood dissipated, revealing the eternal unparalleled temple still standing. But this situation only existed for a moment, and the endless blood sea spread again. This time, it was even crazier. Countless snakes writhed out of the sea of blood and attacked the temple. At the same time, the surface of the sea of blood shook layers of ripples, and a dark red figure walked out of it. His immortal body was floating with unimaginable blood, as if he was wearing a layer of blood armor. Although this figure has changed greatly, he can still be recognized at a glance. He is Lord Shangjuan, Qin Tuo. At this moment, he is simply different from the previous bidding in the auction house. Bloodthirsty, treacherous, and power full of some unknown restrictions, terrifying to the extreme. Stepped out of the blood sea and approached Chen Qing and others. They all noticed the abnormal movement behind them, and then saw this scene. Qin Tuo, why did you become such a ghost? Kui Jing frowned, obviously he was a bit disgusted with Qin Tuo's impression. If there is weirdness, be careful, Chen Qingning said, and then tentatively released the strength training. The violent Yan Lipi stabs Qin Tuo directly, and he cannot avoid it. But then, he quietly raised his palm and waved, and a round of blood mirror appeared in front of him immediately, completely absorbing Chen Qing's strength. Then, the blood mirror shook, and unexpectedly shot Chen Qing's previous strength intact, and its power doubled. Chen Qing's brows twitched heavily, and he drew out the real sword from his waist and cut off all the strength training. This guy is really weird, so be careful. He said condensedly. Hey, Junior of Shong Juanzong, do you really intend to be an enemy of Wangu Wushuang? Kui Jing frowned and shouted coldly. Qin Tuo, who was already wrapped in a sea of blood, showed a quirky curve at the corner of his mouth. What are you Wushuang like? You dare to talk like this? Well, I will kill you all today. As Qin Tuo's voice fell, the endless sea of blood rolled up billions of dust and slapped Chen Qing and others. Little bugs. Fengshan shouted, and then the fairy body doubled in size and was covered by the meaning of red and yellow, like a real sacred mountain, blasting a sea of blood and dust. Rumble. Fengshan's figure only existed for a moment, and when he touched the sea of dust, it was swallowed and absorbed. Chen Qing's face changed slightly, and she shouted without thinking, Go back, there is a problem here. You can't retreat, behind is the Eternal Warrior's Temple. Chuanqiu said in a deep voice, Fengshan is also in a dangerous situation, let alone retreat, then dash out a road. Kui Jing held a profound stick and rushed forward without any hesitation. The sea of blood roared and went to the center. With Chen Qing as the leader, Chuanqiu, Kui Jing, and Wei Liujia all brazenly rushed to the sweeping sea of blood. The four Yangtzeans' full blows opened a crack without any suspense. But it was not Qin Tuo that greeted them, but a world that seemed to be infiltrated with blood, and everything was blood-red. "Here, what place is it?" Kui Jing said uncertainly. "I'm afraid we have entered Qin Tuo's trap." Chun Qiu frowned. Wei Lujia's eyes lit up. Fengshan is ahead. Following his fingers, Fengshan, like a sacred mountain, was lying in the blood at this moment, not knowing his life or death. Wei Liujia stopped talking, and went straight to help. "Liujia, don't go," Chun Qiu said anxiously, but it was still a moment late. The sudden change occurred, and Fengshan, who was still lying in the bloodstain of life and death, suddenly disappeared. Instead, blood lines with the thickness of fingers protruded from the ground and suddenly clung to Wei Lujia's fairy body. In an instant, he was pulled directly into the river of blood and disappeared completely. Since all this was completed in a flash, it was too late when they wanted to help. Chen Qing took a step forward and roared angrily, "Damn chopsticks, hand them over, otherwise you will count as one, and none of them will survive." A chuckle, resounding in this blood-red world without any warning, with a bit of mockery. "Really noisy, you guys today, you can't chew. Com has a count of one, you can't live." Qin Tuo's figure wrapped in the river of blood quietly condensed, like a blood day, hung high above the sky, bloody. The endless blood beam came down, quickly swallowing all the power. With his arms raised flat, blood-colored diamond mirrors appeared all over him. The figures and faces of Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Kui Jing are reflected in each diamond mirror, which is extremely curious. Chun Qiu's complexion changed slightly, and then he seemed to realize something and hurriedly looked at his fairy body. I saw that the fairy body had already been covered with a faint blood mist, and as time passed, it gradually solidified. This situation also appeared in Chen Qing and Kui Jing. Chun Qiu said with a solemn expression, "Did you feel that the power in your body is passing by?" Chen Qing and Kui Jing nodded at the same time, then looked at Qin Tuo in the void together. Chapter 50-53. There is no doubt that all the changes in their immortal body were caused by Qin Tuo. The has increased, almost solidified. Damn it, could it be the mirrors? Kui Jing gasped slightly. With the rapid passing of Yanli, the blood armor on their immortal body became more and more solid. If you wait any longer, the consequences can be imagined. At this moment, the blood-colored diamond mirror surrounding Qin Tuo's body was no less than 100,000 faces. Every diamond mirror reflected the faces of Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Kui Jing, and the blood flowing in them made their faces strange and abnormal. Pretend to be A and play a ghost. Chen Qing's face was cold, and then with a wave of his arm, the real sword in his hand rushed out. In an instant, Jianhua was shocked and swept across the sky. The pure sword intent of nearly 10,000 daos all slashed towards Qin Tuo, as well as the diamond mirror around him. This sword, blended with Chen Qing's immortal style, is a sword of the strongest. Even if it is a fairy of the same realm, it must avoid its edge. But Qin Tuo didn't dodge. He still hung up in the void like a day, and then raised his arms. 100,000 diamond mirrors were like tides, and the cover that came forward pressed against Chen Qing's fairy sword. 100,000 diamond mirrors, to differentiate and impact. But these are not enough for Xianxia. It was almost a single face, with 100,000 diamond mirrors directly shattered into tens of thousands. Like a rain of blood from the sky, the diamond mirror shattered and fell into the sky. Chen Qing's immortal style was too overbearing. 100,000-faced blood-colored diamond mirror could not stop it. It was all crushed and disappeared. Then, all the sword intent stabbed Qin Tuo unabated. As long as this immortal style is in the middle, Chen Qing is completely sure to obliterate it. But then, a treacherous scene appeared. I saw that when the infinite sword intended to stab Qin Tuo, it was directly swallowed and absorbed. After falling into a dead silence for a short time, Qin Tuosen sneered and shook his arms violently, bursting out the infinite sword intent that had been swallowed in an instant. Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Kui Jing were all shocked, and quickly released their respective powers to resist. Rumble. Every sword intent was far better than before, and even Chen Qing almost couldn't support it. The sword light that covered the sky finally dissipated, and Chen Qing pulled down the battered enchantment and fought against Qin Tuo. Chun Qiu and Kui Jing also set off one after another, releasing their respective strengths and encircling them together. I can't help myself. Qin Tuo smiled sullenly. The next moment his whole body directly reflected the ray of blood, and he slammed into Chen Qing. Boom! The giant sound was so loud, the whole blood-colored world trembled. Blood is overflowing, spilling into the void. The three Yangtze's full blows were actually intercepted by Qin Tuo himself, without even taking a step back. This is too shocking. Chen Qing frowned slightly, and he realized that the situation was not simple. The changes caused by all this have long been beyond imagination, and Qin Tuo is definitely more terrifying than he imagined. Immediately afterwards, Qin Tuo gave a deep smile and slammed both fists at Chen Qing. Chen Qing relieved his strength with his palm, but was shocked to realize that when his strength touched him, it was like being swamped and swallowed quickly. Thousands of punches in a flash, each of them hit Chen Qing, Chuanqiu, and Kui Jing's immortal body heavily. Wow! They flew out and plunged heavily into the river of blood. However, this is only the beginning. Above the void, Qin Tuo was almost crazy. His clothes all over his body were shattered, his chest, the endless power surging out, and then turned into snakes, rushing into the river of blood. The blood river rolled up billions of blood waves, almost enveloping the entire scarlet world. With blood in the sky, Qin Tuo's face was gloomy, and his eyes were like two rounds of blood mirrors, exuding a strange, inexplicable and breathtaking power. This blood-colored world, between illusion and reality, was facilitated by Qin Tuo, and even Xianxian, who mastered the immortal style and was only one step away from Dianxian, could not escape. The only way to enter this world is death. Here, he is the supreme being who controls everything. Ah! Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Kui Jing were floating in the bleeding river at the same time, but they couldn't break free at all. Blood snakes entangled the fairy body, madly dragging them into the blood river. Damn thing, what is this guy's background? How can I repay the grievances of blood and energy? Kui Jing struggled and gasped. Both Chen Qing and Chun Qiu struggled to resist and could only barely protect themselves. This river of blood, and even this entire blood-colored world are too weird. Their derivation power is fading fast, and they can't even make up for it. The arms were so tightly wound that they couldn't take the emperor pin pill that they carried with them. Chen Qingning looked at Qin Tuo in the void, and then he let out a deep cry, and his whole body surged with extreme strength in an instant. Control the sky just like the collapse of a big day, a kind of extreme and pure power instantly swept across all fields. The blood snake wrapped around Chen Qing's body directly turned into powder. He broke free from the shackles, and then grabbed Chuanqiu and Kui Jing to get out of the sea of blood. This is Chen Qing's immortal style, his strongest blow. Under this blow, the entire blood mirror world trembles, and boundless cracks cover every corner. It's like a real mirror, about to shatter. But this situation only existed for a moment, and it was quickly repaired. Qin Tuo sneered with Sen, then rushed directly to Chen Qing. The blood burst, swept up from the wild, and then came down. Chen Qing, who was wrapped in the ultimate pure power, pushed Chun Qiu and Kui Jing far away, and greeted Qin Tuo alone. Boom! At this moment, it is as if thousands of stars burst. The immortal Yutian released by Chen Qing was so powerful that it almost instantly swallowed Qin Tuo. The entire scarlet world is on the verge of collapse. Chen Qing, Chun Qiu and Kui Jing yelled anxiously. They wanted to give aid, but they were repelled by the huge energy. This terrible fluctuation does not last long, only a few dozen interest times. With Chen Qing flying backwards and retreating, it was over. Kui Jing has quick eyes and quick hands, and hastily released Yanli to support Chen Qing, who was flying backwards. Divine blood was spilled, the immortal body was covered with scars, his eyes closed tightly, and he was obviously fainted. Qin Tuo is dead. Looking at the blood mist in the void, Chuanqiu realized that things might not be that simple. As if to confirm his thoughts, in the void, the thick blood mist gathered again, and the limbs grew rapidly. Qin Tuo didn't suffer any damage at all, and even his whole body became stronger and stronger. Chun Qiu and Kui Jing stepped back slowly, looking at him solemnly. This blood-colored world is too weird, making things completely out of the original scope. A little careless, I am afraid they will never escape today. The danger this time is far more swift and unpredictable than any one in 20,000 years. And what caused this result was only a fairy. Chapter 50-54. This is a big crisis. Chen Qing, Fengshan, and Wei Liujia have all suffered, but Chuanqiu and Kui Jing are the only ones to support. Take care of Chen Qing, I will fight. After Kui Jing left this sentence, he rushed into the void resolutely. Facing Qin Tuo, he tilted the 8-foot profound stick and rushed forward without hesitation. With a stick smashed, 100,000 Zhong Phantom was like a black dragon, shaking the sky and the earth. Qin Tuo withdrew, raising his right hand, and suddenly condensed into a fist. In an instant, countless strands of blood-colored huamang rose from behind him, strangling the sky and the earth towards Kui Jing. OM. The meanings of blood-red and black collided, and the shadow of the mysterious stick quickly shattered, but the blood color did not decrease, frantically strangling towards Kui Jing. Only in a moment, Kui Jing's figure was submerged in the torrent. Kui Jing. Chun Qiu was anxious, and he almost hugged Chen Qing into the river of blood in front of him. The entire chaotic sky was almost covered by a torrent of blood. Kui Jing was swallowed, and it was already difficult to escape. Qin Tuo stood with his hands behind and slowly came to the position where Kui Jing had stood before. In the next moment, the sudden change. The chaotic blood river was torn open a crack without any warning. Along with the blood river tearing apart, a powerful profound stick suddenly smashed out. Because this is happening too fast, even Qin Tuo can't react. Boom. Unparalleled violence, bloodthirsty breath broke out completely. Under this stick, Qin Tuo's entire right arm was smashed into pieces, turning into a handful of blood mist. Then, Kui Jing walked out of the torrent like a demon god. He was covered in blood, and he lifted the profound stick diagonally in his hand. Facing the retreating Qin Tuo, he spit out a foam and said violently, "You are the same as an immortal, and you also have the qualifications to be rampant. Today I have to take out your immortal bones even with broken cultivation base." The smashed arm quickly recovered. Qin Tuo was furious, his arms emptied suddenly, and the endless stream of blood formed a shining mirror behind him. In the diamond mirror, an endless river of blood was reflected. Bah, just pretend to be a fool. Kui Jing spit out another mouthful of blood, and said grimly, "This diamond mirror is too vast, like a barrier connecting a super-heavenly plane." Kui Jing stood in front of this diamond mirror like a chestnut in the ocean. In the huge diamond mirror, the river of blood surged, and then a vertical pupil appeared with a certain bewitching power. "Kui Jing, go back." Chun Qiu noticed something was wrong and reminded him anxiously, but it was too late. Kui Jing stood still on the spot, as if he was drawn out of his spirit. His eyes lost his expression, and then he jumped into the diamond mirror and was swallowed by the river of blood. Chun Qiu's face was pale. When there were 5 people, he was the only one left at the moment. This situation was too tragic. Fengshan, Wei Liujia, and Kui Jing are all missing, and Chen Qing has also passed out. In this whole treacherous world, he is the only one who has the power to fight. He waved his hand to release Yang Li to hold Chen Qing in the void, and Chun Qiu stood in front of Qin Tuo. "Hand over them all, otherwise you will not be able to bear the consequences." Qin Tuo, who was soaked in blood, sneered coldly, "You mobs no longer have the strength to fight, and are you still trying to make a profit? Really, are you so sure that we don't have the power to fight?" Chun Qiu said with a smile. Qin Tuo didn't say anything. He was disgusted with Chunkius' rhetorical question. Just when he was about to cover it with a palm, the entire scarlet world shook suddenly. The shock was so severe that it instantly collapsed the earth and the blood flow countered. Qin Tuo was shocked, his indifferent face was a little moved. The tremor of the entire scarlet world is due to external forces that cannot be ignored. However, Chun Qiu first stared nervously, and then a touch of joy appeared. He felt a familiar, domineering power. The originally dark sky began to shatter, and endless cracks twisted and swept across, almost covering the entire sky. The next moment, starting from the center of the crack, the entire sky collapsed and shattered in an instant, and the river of blood flowed backward. A pure to extreme force, pressing the blood river, here. With the arrival of this sword-like figure, all blood qi dissipated, unable to enter him for hundreds of miles. The tooth-white robe fluttered in the wind, and the long black hair fluttered behind him, looking at Qin Tuo with a majestic look. He only felt that his divine consciousness was suddenly hit hard and he could not be beaten, and he almost fell directly. Qin Tuo snorted, backed a few steps, and then a ray of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. The visitor was terrible, and it was no longer comparable to ordinary evangelists that it could be done in just one face. He looked at the figure in the tooth-white uniform, and fear flashed in his eyes. "Brother Jian," Chun Qiu shouted. Kui Jing and the others were all taken to unknown places by him. The person who came was Jian Wushuang. When he was about to come together before, he was forcibly pulled by Xiao Dijuan to take the medicine, so he didn't come with Chen Qing in time. But the current situation is far more severe than imagined. After listening to Chunkius' words, Jian Wushuang frowned and looked at Qin Tuo, who was like a blood god. For some reason, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. But he was sure that he had never seen Qin Tuo. "Hey, send them all back, I won't hold you accountable," Jian Wushuang said quietly, with unquestionable majesty, as if he was a notice, not a discussion. Qin Tuo was startled, and then annoyed. "Send it back if you say you want it back." "I'm afraid it's wishful thinking." Jian Wushuang was too lazy to spend his tongue, raising his hand and bending his fingers. In an instant, a pure and extreme sword aura rose up and down, slashing forward. This is an unstoppable sword energy. Even if Qin Tuo reacts, he can only choose to resist. Chirp! Divine blood was spilled, and the sword energy almost cut Qin Tuo into two. He snorted, and murderous intent appeared in his eyes, almost trying to break the fairy body, releasing endless blood. The blood qi transformed into 1,000,000 diamond mirrors, surrounding Jian Wushuang from every direction. Watching this scene, Spring and Autumn was shocked. "Brother Jian, run away." However, Jian Wushuang did not evade. Instead he looked at the 1,000,000-faced diamond mirror with great interest. Qin Tuo showed a cruel smile. No Yangxian could escape from him. This was self-confidence. But the next moment, great changes have taken place. Surrounded by a 1,000,000-faced blood-colored diamond mirror, a blue column of blue light rose into the sky, directly clearing the blood mist. At the same time, a treasure figure covering the heaven and the earth appeared, and the colorful shadows fell on the heaven and the earth. Baoxiang opened his eyes, an indescribable majesty swallowed everything. The entire blood mirror world couldn't bear this energy and quickly collapsed. The millions of diamond mirrors quickly turned into powder, collapsed and dissipated like a tide. Qin Tuo was shocked and hurried back, but it was already too late. Chapter 50-55. Under the pressure of Wushuang Baoxiang, all filth cannot exist. The millions of diamond mirrors were instantly emptied, and even the whole blood mirror world collapsed into nothingness. Qin Tuo was not spared. He was shattered by Wushuang Baoxiang's eyes and turned into a powder. After all, he is nothing but a fairy. Even if he is only one step away from dying, he is still a fairy. How can he withstand Jian Wushuang's full blow? Everything turned into ashes and nothingness, including the river of blood that surrounded the eternal unparalleled temple. Qingling and the others opened the door of the temple, still very nervously searching for any crisis. Carrying Chen Qing's Chuanqiu, looking at the figure that was light and breezy from beginning to end, an uncontrollable excitement flashed in his eyes. Such a difficult battle was easily cracked by Jian Wushuang. This is enough to see that he has reached an unimaginable height in nearly 20,000 years after returning from the Sea of No Edge. In the spring and autumn at this moment, there is only excitement and happiness in my heart. But before the joy in his heart lasted long, he mentioned it again, because Qin Tuo, who had been destroyed by Jian Wushuang's immortal body, had actually condensed again. Brother Jian, be careful. Chun Chiu shouted. Qin Tuo gave a deep smile and slammed Jian Wushuang's back with a palm. The terrible blood rushed forward instantly, and pierced Jian Wushuang without any hindrance. Like a stone thrown into the lake, there are ripples. His figure disappeared like a cloud of smoke, which was very strange. Qin Tuo was startled, he realized what was wrong, and when he wanted to retreat, he realized that it was too late. Cold sweat gushed from his temples, and Qin Tuo clearly felt a finger against his neck. After a moment, a soft sound struck him, and he felt his head dizzy, and then his head and body separated. Waving his hand to cut off Qin Tuo's head, Jian Wushuang directly took his head and urged him to the front of the eternal Wushuang temple. Sword, Lord Sword. Qing Ling was shocked and lost her voice, and immediately realized her failure and hurriedly lowered her head. Jian Wushuang nodded and smiled, then dropped Qin Tuo's head in the middle of the square. Release them back and I will spare your life. With only one head left, Qin Tuo smiled slyly. Do you think that if I eat it, will I vomit it out? Jian Wushuang raised his brows. Want to die? Of course I want to die, but no one can put my seat on. Without finishing a sentence, Jian Wushuang directly raised his foot and crushed Qin Tuo's head. Chun Chiu was startled. Brother Jian, kill him, I'm afraid Fengshan and the others. This is not his true fate, but just a shell. Jian Wushuang said, Fengshan and the others should have been taken away by his true fate a long time ago. When Chun Chiu heard the words, he understood the meaning of the words. You go to Xiao Gutian and call that immortal Yang from some ancient sea city. He should know how to go. In the vast void, the four realms are moving forward quickly like the big sun and stars. They are all detached from the order, and they are all immortals. The leader is Jian Wushuang in white-toothed uniform. To his side are Chuanqiu, Chen Qing who has just awakened, and Guting, the son of Guhaicheng. Fucking, this time I go to their nest, I will kill him first. No one can escape. Chen Qing said angrily, obviously still remembering the previous things. Chun Chiu also agrees very much. Since taking this opportunity to find the sect of Shongjuanzong, there is no better way than destroying the sect in a battle. But Ji Yuting seemed a lot more nervous. He escaped from Qin Tuo's hands, naturally knowing Qin Tuo's terrifying strength. Therefore, when he saw that the WNGU Wushuang auction house only went to 3 Yangxian, he couldn't help feeling a little absurd. You know, Shongjuanzong is also one of the top superpowers in the entire Daisy domain, and even Guhaicheng must be a little afraid of existence. Just the number of immortals in the sect will never be less than 50. What's more, there are rumors that the sect master Shongjun is already quasi-Dian immortal. With such a terrifying strength, WNGU Wushuang only dispatched 3 immortals. From Ji Yuting's point of view, this is almost the same as sending death. His injury is only stable. If he goes straight to Juanzong, there is absolutely no possibility of surviving. For the sake of his own fate, Ji Yuting finally said, several seniors, if we go straight to Shongjuanzong, would it be a bit too thin? Why don't I ask my ancestors for help? Jian Wushuang smiled upon hearing the words, no need. Immediately afterwards, Chen Qing waved his hand again, it's not necessary, if there are only a few of us, even if you add your Guhai city to destroy Shongjuanzong, it is not easy. But it's different now. As long as there are sword brothers, even 10 Shongjuanzong are tied together, and it's definitely not enough to kill. Ji Yuting's brow jumped, and he didn't know how to express his position. As the second in command of the eternal world, Chen Qing's words were obviously weighty, not to mention the presence of the top leader in spring and autumn, which invisibly increased credibility. But he still didn't believe it. He had to know that unless it was Dian immortal, he could have the power to destroy an entire super-universe, and Chen Qing, Chuanqiu, and the mysterious man obviously did not reach Dian immortal's level. This is undoubtedly a gamble. Ji Yuting gritted his teeth and didn't know what to do. It seems that he saw his worry. Jian Wushuang, who was walking forward with his hand, said in a low voice, just take us to find the location of Shongjuanzong. You won't need to visit by then, just leave. Ji Yuting was startled, then bowed his head slightly embarrassed. The large division area developed by Zhen Wuyang is almost infinite, and it is a realm that gathered more than 10 former emperors, and the area is imaginable. However, after experiencing the Emperor's War in the Wangu era, the countless celestial planes in the realm have almost collapsed more than half. Even after infinite years, the cycle of the universe has not fully recovered. But even so, some universe planes still take over the new heavens Fukuzawa, and become a super-universe. And Shongjuanzong is naturally one of them. Under the guidance of Jiyu Ting, the heaven plane where Shongjuanzong was located quickly appeared in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The huge heavenly gate is built in the void and is very magnificent. The fairy clouds are curled up, and the auspicious cranes are mingling. It is quite a super-sect aura. The word Shangjuan is embedded on the Tianmen, which is obviously where the Shangjuanzongmen is located. Jian Wushuang was still very indifferent, carrying his hands on his back and moving forward leisurely. Chen Qing and Kui Jing followed closely, with undisguised murderous in their eyes. Jiyu Ting opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. He was struggling inside, wondering whether he should leave or stay. After a while, he gritted his teeth abruptly, made a decision, and then followed without looking back, and went straight to Shongjuanzong with Jian Wushuang. Chapter 50-56. The fairy clouds are curled up, and the auspicious mingling. This is a side of the land. Standing in the void, is the Tianmen at the beginning of the Shangjuanzong portal. At this moment, several top repairers are guarding. The fairy rhyme is flowing, and behind the Tianmen is a huge fairy formation. Stop, He Fang Yangxian, our sect is not open to the outside world, please move forward. The breeze swept, and a Ding Xiu stationed outside Tianmen stretched out his hand to block Jian Wushuang's path. Before Jian Wushuang could speak, Chen Qing directly slapped the top repairmen thousands of feet away, and immediately opened the door of Shongjuanzong. Afterwards, Jian Wushuang stepped slowly into the Tianmen. Behind the Tianmen is not the heavenly plane of Shongjuanzong, but a huge and chaotic fairy formation. Pretending to be and playing a ghost, it's definitely not a good bird. Chen Qing said in a deep voice, and directly waved out a powerful training. But when Yang Lipi Lian hit the fairy formation, he was easily absorbed and couldn't break it. I'm afraid I can't forcibly break here, the fairy formation has been set up. Chun Qiu said thoughtfully. As soon as his voice fell, Jian Wushuang directly raised his hand and easily tore the barrier on the immortal formation. Let's go. He motioned, and then stepped into the fairy formation. Earlier when he went to Da Mitian of Gongzi Jiao, Jian Wushuang had felt the mystery of teleporting the fairy formation. It was very good, and he could instantly go anywhere within the path of the fairy formation. The origin of the teleportation immortal array has long been untraceable, but it has completely flourished from the time of Zhen Wuyang. If you want to destroy the heavens in a vertical and horizontal manner, a large-scale dispatch of the eternal fairy is extremely important, and Zhen Wuyang also used the characteristic of the immortal formation to transmit, successfully destroying the heavens from one side to another. It is precisely because of this that even though endless years have passed, the role of the fairy formation is still retained in some super-universes. When they thought about it, they stood on the ground covered by a fairy cloud. This is Shongjuanzong. Why doesn't it look like a place where dirt is hidden? Chen Qing touched his chin and looked at Gutting. At the moment, Jiyu Ting was extremely nervous. Well, this should be where Shangjuan's sect is located. I also passed by with the elders of the clan hundreds of millions of years ago and never visited this place. Don't worry, let's talk about it. Chen Qing said in a deep voice. At this time, Jian Wushuang said, don't do anything for the time being. If the Shongjuanzong is indeed a good and large party, let them go. If not, it's not too late to do it again. In spring and autumn, Chen Qingyuting nodded at the same time. The fairy clouds are curled up, the fairy mountains are towering, the endless green fairy trees are growing vigorously, and the primitive pavilions are like horned dragons, hibernating quietly in the fairy mountains. At this moment, it is in the morning dew, and some disciples have begun to breathe in the morning, practicing diligently in their respective dojos. Jian Wushuang walked forward with his hands down, and he didn't even look at these Shongjuanzong disciples. His goal was very clear, and he went straight to the hall of Shangjuanzong. Soon, the disciples of Shangjunzong found the uninvited guests and began to gather in the direction of the hall. The Great Hall of King Juanzong is located at the very center of the entire vast horizon plain, occupying the most powerful place. It was only a few dozen breaths of time before Zhen Wushuang set foot on the main hall square. The square is magnificent, the hall is vast and magnificent to the extreme. At the very center of the square, there is a huge sundial, in which every direction corresponds to a star. Chen Qing stood directly on the sundial, yelling with halberd fingers, "Old Kang-bearded thief in the temple, get out of here." As if boiling water rose sharply, the hall opened, and more than a dozen old men wearing ink robes walked out quickly, all in an unrelenting appearance. At a glance, Zhen Wushuang knew that these old men were all immortals. A long-bearded old man looked bad. Where is the crumbly young man, dare to stand on the sundial? Don't you know how the death character is written? Chen Qing sneered, disdainfully said, "Why, do you want to tell?" The long-bearded old man was so angry that the ancient staff in his hand suddenly slammed, and in an instant a pure force rushed forward. Chen Qing directly raised his hand with a wave, and shattered the yanli that had hit him. "Don't use the skill of Yehu Zen to be embarrassing, so I won't kill you." Chen Qing roared angrily, "Hand over Qin Tuor, otherwise you will die." With huge sounds, all the elders and disciples took a step back, their expressions solemn. It was the long-bearded old man who stepped forward and said, "Junior, Shangjuanzong is not the place where you wait for madness. It's still too late to walk so as not to be hit hard. Let's go, of course, and return my 3 brothers first." Chun Chiu stepped forward and said in a condensed voice. The long-bearded old man trembled his brows. He obviously knew something, but he still said, "I have never stepped out of the sect for millions of years. I don't know the whereabouts of your brother. I think there must be some misunderstanding. Old thief, dare you open your eyes and tell nonsense?" Chen Qing smirked and slammed all the elders. The elders all reacted and hurriedly resisted. Chen Qing had already understood his own fairy style. Only a short distance from Dian Immortal, he was a quasi-Dian Immortal, and with a full blow, it was enough to make ordinary Immortal unbearable. The 15 elders resisted with all their might before Chen Qing struck. The long-bearded old man almost stood unstable, and blood surged in the fairy body. Chen Qing shouted in a cold voice, "Leave me away if you don't want to die. Today I'm here to beg for justice. If you persist in retreating, don't blame Larozi for destroying the clan." As soon as this statement came out, all Shangjuanzong disciples were in an uproar, and then quickly backed away. The face of the long-bearded old man changed several times, and finally he looked at the elder on the side and winked secretly. Then, the 2 elders quickly entered the temple. "I think there must be some misunderstanding in this, please stop for a while." The long-bearded old man took a deep breath and said slowly. Chen Qing stopped talking, calm instead, and turned to look at Zhen Wushuang, who looked calm. In front of the main hall, in the center of the square, there was a short silence. After a few breaths, Zhen Wushuang moved, and he moved forward slowly. Ji Ting on the side brows. For some reason, every time he sees Zhen Wushuang, he will involuntarily become nervous, as if he is staring into an unknown abyss, unable to explore. At the same time, Ji Ting's heart also has a faint expectation. What kind of existence is Zhen Wushuang, who can make Wushuang's first and second in command willing to go with him? Soon, he saw an almost unimaginable scene. Zhen Wushuang was alone, facing more than a dozen Shangjuanzong elders, just raised his hand and flicked them all away. More than a dozen Shangjuanzong elders who had been immersed in Yangxian for countless years, all flew out, smashed the door of the palace heavily, and then rolled into the hall. Chapter 50-57. The facade of the quaint and solemn hall was smashed with dozens of holes, which was ridiculous and funny. More than a dozen elders Yangxian all turned into a ground gourd. They didn't even have time to release Yanli, they were lying like old dogs in the hall. Dead silence, silent dead silence. Nearly 1,000 disciples who came to the great hall of Shangjunzong all had a panoramic view of this scene, completely dumbfounded. Their elders, who are highly respected and unfathomable in strength, are actually drawn into a gourd. Jiu Ting was dumbfounded, and even blinked hard, trying to see if it was an illusion. This is too unimaginable. With just a slap, more than a dozen immortals flew away. Looking around, except Dian immortals, I am afraid that even quasi-Dian immortals can't do it. But right now, this scene actually happened. Zhuzi, looking for death. The 13 elders of Shang Juanzong rushed out of the hall and blasted towards Jian Wushuang, headed by the long-bearded old man. At this moment, time seemed to stagnate, and the perception of every cultivator and disciple present seemed to slow down. Only Jian Wushuang, his actions remained the same, he stepped up one step at a time. Seeing the elders who came from all directions, he seemed uninterested. But he still raised his hand, "Feel free." Sword intent. Puff, a clear tearing sound came into the ears of every monk present. Then the 13 elders snorted at the same time and flew out again. As they fell to the ground, the colorful blood of the gods spilled down the jade steps, forming a blood path. The 13 elders and 13 Yangxian all had their right arms abolished at that moment. Divine blood flowed from their broken arms, dyed with red jade steps. Only fear was left in their eyes, holding the broken arm and backing continuously. Jian Wushuang, who was wearing a tooth-white uniform, still did not get a trace of bloodstains, and moved forward slowly, climbing up the steps. "I will give you one last chance. Should I die here for unknown reasons, or let your sect master come out?" Jian Wushuang said quietly, without any waves. The headed long-bearded old man was holding his broken arm, his face pale. "Junior, do you know this is an enemy of my entire Shangjuanzong? So what?" He raised his brow. "Chen Qing, here comes the sword. Come." On the square, Chen Qing laughed and drew out the real sword from his waist and threw it at Jian Wushuang. Zheng Dash, the true sword, screamed, broke through the clouds and mist, and fell straight into his hands. As if seeing his intention, the long-bearded old man trembled in his heart and lost his voice. No. But it was too late. Jian Wushuang used his hand to lead the sword, bursting out the most brilliant trend. At this moment, it seemed to be broken for thousands of days, and the fringe-like strength was flowing and blooming. All monks, Yangxian couldn't look directly at him. A sword slashed out, and the hall that stood up for countless years was shattered. Carved beams and painted buildings, turned into ruined walls, pavilions are broken into powder. The flow of order, heaven, collapsed and collapsed, no longer existed. One sword, destroy the sect. The fringe-like strength of Yang was spilt, and all the disciples of Shang Juanzong opened their eyes, and then their faces were pale. The pavilions, terraces and pavilions have become flat ground, and everything is gone. Chen Qing was extremely excited with his boxing palm, and after a glance with Chun Qiu, he went to Jian Wushuang's side. Jiu Ting was completely shocked, his chest fluctuated violently. This scene was too shocking. The foundation of Shang Juanzong turned into dust under this sword. He has a strong intuition that Shang Juanzong is in danger today. Before the shattered hall, Jian Wushuang returned the sword to Chen Qing, and without seeing the deadly elders of Shang Juanzong, he walked straight into the ruins. His goal is to find Kui Jing, Wei Liujia, and Feng Shan. No one can stop them. Soon, Jian Wushuang stopped moving forward. Because there was a small and rickety figure that blocked his way forward. "You can't move forward anymore," said the thin, rickety figure, with a hoarse and firm voice. "Of course you can. Return the 3 Yangxians you shouldn't touch. I won't go into further details," Jian Wushuang said simply. Unexpectedly, the rickety figure shook his head. "It is no longer possible. The Shangzhenzong Tianjian was destroyed by you, enough to offset the lives of the 3 Yangxians." Jian Wushuang sneered coldly. "It seems that you don't plan to hand them over. You guys please come back, otherwise the consequences will definitely not be acceptable to you." Rickety figure continued. "Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, do it." Jian Wushuang snorted coldly. Chen Qing Chunky responded, without any hesitation, and went straight forward. And the mysterious, rickety figure also set off. His figure is extremely agile, like a ghost, brazenly responding. With 2 fists and 4 palms, the horrible force of power swept directly like a torrent. Like the great sound of ancient times, it resounds through the sky, and it can be empty. Under the impact of Chen Qing and Chun Qiu, the rickety figure was carried down abruptly, without taking a step back. Then he shook his arms and flew Chen Qing and Chuanqiu tens of feet away. Looking for death. Chen Qing screamed, blasting out with a fist, piercing the sky with his fist, causing the sky to change. And Chun Qiu also started, a short sword with purple patterns all over his body, protruding from his sleeve, and stab forward fiercely. This is the full blow of the two pinnacles. Rickety figure stood in place, did not evade, chose to resist the blow hard. Boom! The ruins and broken walls were instantly shattered into powder, and all the disciples of Shangjuanzong who were present were all retreats, and were scattered to pieces. The rickety figure, back 10 feet, cut a dagger deep into his heart, dripping with blood dripping on the ground. Let's go. Jian Wushuang gave a deep cry, before moving forward. You can't go. The rickety figure opened his arms and tried to stop. Jian Wushuang no longer paid attention to him, stretched out his hand to release Yan Labilian to bind him, and then walked to the depths of the ruined wall. The entire Shangjuanzong Hall, and even the plains, were completely disrupted, creating a doomsday scene. One sword destroyed the Great Hall of Shangjuanzong. Jian Wushuang did not rush to kill, but followed the Ruiaruawu breath and walked into the depths of the Great Hall. Does it have to be so? A low, Ruiaruawu voice resounded from the ruins, with a certain bewitching aura. Jian Wushuang stopped and looked forward indifferently. After a few breaths, the entire space was trembling, and then strands of grey power appeared like mist, and then gathered into a black robe figure. This black robe was slender and extremely skinny, and his face was extremely weird like a skeleton. I have no intention of destroying your Shangjuanzong. I just came to find my friends. Jian Wushuang said, let them return and I will return. A long wind arose from the ruins, making everything strange. Chapter 50-58. Haipao was silent, his eyes fixedly looking at Jian Wushuang. You guys, are you here to prevent my son from ascending the place of Dian Immortal? When Jian Wushuang heard the words, his heart sank, and he felt bad. Say, where are they? If you don't tell, Shangjuanzong has one count, and it will definitely die miserably. The figure of the black robe is the sect master Qin Zun of Shangjuan, and Qin Tuo is the son of his seat. Facing Jian Wushuang's yelling question, he turned a deaf ear, and his eyes began to show anger. All the elders of Shangjuanzong, the disciples followed the orders and rushed to the Tienge quickly to capture and kill the invading enemy. Jian Wu was cold. Do you want all the disciples of the whole school to bury you? It is you. Qin Zun said angrily, you are nothing but a little Yangxian, and I can kill you by flipping my hand. Jian Wushuang was disgusted and directly raised his hand and drew a palm towards him. Unparalleled strength swept up in an instant, carrying Wanjin's momentum to cover it. Qin Zun also reacted, and suddenly raised his arms, soaring into the sky, directly smashing Jian Wushuang's offensive. As the sect master of Shangjuan, he had already understood his immortal style several years ago, and he was only a short distance from Dian Immortal. Facing Jian Wushuang, who was only the realm of immortality, he naturally didn't put it in his eyes. But afterwards, Qin Zun realized how absurd his ideas were. Jian Wushuang was uncharacteristically, his eyes rushed forward with a touch of blood. Its speed was so fast that when Qin Zun reacted, a heavy fist slammed his chest. A crisp bone cracking sounded, his chest sank directly, and then his whole figure flew upside down and fell into the ruins. Jian Wushuang's figure was like a ghost, and the moment Qin Zun landed, he had already arrived in front of him, and he slammed down again. The clear bone crack sounded again. Even if Qin Zun was a quasi-Dian immortal, the immortal body was so strong that he was still inferior to Jian Wushuang after all. The dust flew up, and violent shockwaves waved up. All the elders of Shangjuanzong who came after hearing Qin Zun's orders, and his disciples were afraid to step forward. The blood is lingering, almost like a sea of blood. This is Jian Wushuang's way of killing, and only his way of killing can burst out such pure blood. In 10 breaths of time, a total of 10,000 punches hit Qin Zun's immortal body without fail. When Jian Wushuang stopped, he was already dying. The fairy bones were smashed to pieces, and could never be recovered in a short time. Slowly exhaling a turbid breath, he raised his hand and threw Qin Zun like a dead dog from a distance, and then stared at the ground under his feet. Adding to the way of killing, Jian Wushuang's sensitivity to blood has reached an unprecedented level, and he smelled the unrest on the ground under his feet. This is the most central part of the Great Hall of King Juanzong, and it is also the place where the strength and blood is strongest, and Qin Tuo's hiding place is very likely here. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang no longer hesitated, turning his right hand together, and an invisible sword appeared. Then he thrust the invisible sword into the ground heavily. The next moment, the whole fairy mountain was shaking, and an indescribable wave broke out. All the elders and disciples of Shang Juanzong were retired from Baizhong again. Even Chen Qing and Chuanqiu could not stop and were forced to withdraw from Baizhong. The fairy clouds receded, the whole towering fairy mountain was densely covered with cracks, and the pure meaning of red gold flowed in the cracks. Then the fairy mountain shattered and turned into heavy rocks and fell into the mountain stream. As the fairy mountain shattered, a mass of blood rose from it like a scorching sun. The blood was chaotic, exuding a weird color, and the center was a dark black that couldn't be seen directly, and even Jian Wushuang could not see what was hidden in it. But the breath that this blood radiated seemed to have crossed that hurdle. Along with this blood qi ascending, the entire heaven plane was infiltrated with blood qi and turned dark red. Jian Wushuang frowned, and he felt the inexplicable familiarity again. The blood qi gradually dissipated, and the chaos at the center was a figure. He was Qin Tuo, who had his head severed earlier. At this moment, his whole body is covered with dark red dense lines, and in the void behind him, there is a round of closed eye wheels hanging high. The aura that Qin Tuo exudes far surpasses that of Yangxian and truly reaches the realm of Dianxian. Although there is only a short line between Yangxian and Dianxian, it is an unimaginable gap. 99% of Yangxian can't break through. Only Yangxian with less than 1 point can ascend the place of Dianxian. The difficulty of this is impossible to describe. Jian Wushuang frowned. At this moment, he didn't care if Qin Tuo was Dian immortal. What he worried most was the whereabouts of Kui Jing and the others. Is this the thought that Dian immortal can control? It's really wonderful. Qin Tuo smiled slyly, then looked forward. With eyes facing each other, Qin Tuo took the lead in attacking. With a flick of his hand, the chain of heavenly Tao constructed by Yanli was directly wound towards Jian Wushuang. The sword intent was brilliant, rising into the sky. Facing the chain of heaven and earth, millions of sword intents gathered on the front line, brazenly responded. Zheng the heavens and the earth trembled, and at this moment the chains of the heavenly Tao were directly shattered, and the millions of sword intents were cast away, directly strangling Qin Tuo. The dark red blood surged directly into a collision. Not only that, the huge eye wheel hanging in the void behind Qin Tuo also slowly opened at this moment. The vertical pupil is cold, without any emotions, and some are just bewitching and intriguing. With the opening of this eye chakra, everything quietly changed. Whenever he stares at him, even Yangxian is directly lost. At this moment, all the disciples and even the elders of Shang Juanzong were lost, and then frantically fighting each other. Ji Yuting was shocked, and he was almost lost, but Chen Qing slapped him back into reality and watched this scene in shock with his face covered. Don't look at that eye. I can save you once, but I may not save you a second time. After Chen Qing asked him, Common said nothing. After working together to build the barrier, Chun Qiu looked at Jian Wushuang's back with concern. This kind of bewitching power was too weird, and you might get lost if you were not careful. Once Jian Wushuang gets lost, things will probably become completely uncontrollable. Facing the bewitching eye wheel, Jian Wushuang frowned. As the great perfection of divine mind, he can naturally feel the bewitching power emanating from the eye chakra, which mainly erodes divine thought. If ordinary Yangxian is careless, I am afraid he will get lost. Are you confused enough? Jian Wushuang frowned, then raised his hand and slapped it. This slap with infinite sword intent, like a hurricane, easily cut the chains of the heavens, and came to Qin Tuo's immortal body and the huge eye wheel behind him. Qin Tuo didn't expect Jian Wushuang to be deceived, nor did he expect that he would counterattack so quickly. So that he didn't even react, and he abruptly withstood the heavy blow. Chapter 50-59. The sky was directly shattered into a deep gully, exposing the void raging by the wind. However, Chin Tuor was like a kite with a broken line, flying upside down thousands of feet away, smashing several gods and celestial mountains to stop his figure. Sword intent hovered all over the sky, pointing directly at Chin Tuor. The eye wheel in the void looked at everything like a totem. "You wanna die?" Chin Tuor roared and walked out of the broken fairy mountain. He waved his arms, rushing out one after another with powerful force, entwining Xiong Jian Wushuang. Noisy. Jian Wushuang looked coldly, stretched out his hand and shook it, and immediately crushed all the entangled Yanli. Then, he rushed towards Chin Tuor. With a heavy blow, the fist pierced the air, and all the blood mist was instantly cleared. This is a punch that contains the way of killing, enough to make Dian immortal even unable to bear it. However, Chin Tuor resisted, his entire chest collapsed and shattered, and tassel-like strength poured into the void. He couldn't believe that a little Yangxian could cause such a heavy injury to him. You know, between Yangxian and Dianxian, that sky can't be crossed at all, let alone harm Dianxian. But now, it actually happened. Divine blood spurted and the fairy body shattered, but after only a few dozen breaths of time, all healed. In Chin Tuor's eyes, only madness remained. He has been suppressed by Jian Wushuang, even if he is still passive even when he is in Dianxian, this makes him almost crazy. The boundless dark red blood mist condensed into chains, smashed from the void, penetrating every inch of the earth, the fairy mountain. The elder Shang Juanzong, who had been lost, and his disciples did not dodge at all, staring blankly at the void, and then being pierced by chains falling from the sky, turning them into powder. Jian Wushuang frowned, and the invisible sword condensed again, piercing the void, cutting off the chains. His mother, isn't this beast going crazy? How come he doesn't let his own sect disciple let him go? In the enchantment, Chen Qing was struggling to resist. It should be those eyes that are playing tricks, try to get them down, Chun Qiu said in a deep voice, looking at the eye wheel hovering in the void. I want to find a way. Chen Qing gritted his teeth and thought, the true sword draped around his waist was directly out of the sheath, carrying a million sword intent to cut towards the void eye wheel. The dark red eye wheel is extremely huge, almost dividing the sky into two, the pupils are extremely chaotic, and the bewitching breath is emitted from the center of the vertical pupil. Millions of sword intent, condensed into a huge true sword, pierced the strange eye wheel with a shocking shock. The next moment, a treacherous scene appeared. The million sword intent stabbed into the eye chakra without any hindrance, but it was nothing more than that, like a mud cow entering the sea, without causing any explosion, the eye chakra was completely unharmed. No, I'm afraid I'm in big trouble. Chen Qing's lips trembled slightly, as if foreseeing something terrible. Next, as if to confirm his thoughts, the eye wheels in the void suddenly trembled, and then a huge true sword stained with dark red blood fog shot out, returning to the original road and heading straight to Chen Qing, the knot of spring and autumn cut off the whirl. Run! Chen Qing was shocked and fled directly with Chuan Qiu. Boom! The huge true sword fell down, the earth was shattered and thousands of fairy mountains collapsed at this moment. All the elders and disciples who came from Shangjuanzong were buried in the end, leaving no trace. With a panoramic view of this scene, Jian Wushuang turned his head to look at Chin Tuor. You think, never die? So what? The final result will definitely be your death. Chin Tuor said coldly. In that case, it's as you wish. After he finished speaking, the invisible sword in his hand suddenly slashed towards Chin Tuor. The void collapsed, endless sword intent galloping horizontally and horizontally. Chin Tuor roared, the meridians above the immortal body rose up, and his stature suddenly increased several times. Immediately afterwards, a dark red treasure that shook the sky and the earth condensed behind him. The treasure is too huge, shocking the sky, as if shrouded in clouds and smoke, it is generally unreal, only the hazy outline can barely be seen. Moreover, the dark red treasure behind Chin Tuor was entangled by chains protruding from the void, restricting his movement. As soon as Baoxiang came out, his aura climbed several levels steeply, reaching an unprecedented level, and even Jian Wushuang felt the crisis. "I'm the Dian Immortal, and what are you?" Qin Tuo roared, his 5 fingers stretched out, and hundreds of millions of threads of blood burst out suddenly. Facing the glow that covered the sky, Jian Wushuang walked forward with his hand holding his hand, his eyes indifferent. His whole body has been quietly covered with a light golden glow, easily resisting the blood glow like a needle like a sword. Qin Tuo was secretly surprised. Although he had already reached the realm of Dian Immortal, Jian Wushuang's calmness and determination still made him palpitate inexplicably. Therefore, he decided to make a move, and the dark red treasure behind the chain was restored. Baoxiang raised his arm, covering Jian Wushuang with a palm large enough to cover the sky. The tremor of the void seemed to be unable to bear this kind of power, and might collapse at any time. Rumble, the giant sound pierced the wilds, and the red gold and the dark red collided, and the impact that broke out directly cleared the void, making the entire celestial plane unbearable and beginning to be fragmented. The palm that the dark red treasure smashed was also shattered, and an extremely eye-catching figure resembling the stars of the big sun came to Qin Tuo's face in a flash. Yizheng was too fast, and when he reacted, Jian Wushuang was already standing in front of him. "How about Dian Immortal?" Along with this indifferent voice fell the coldness of a sword penetrating the fairy body. Qin Tuo only felt a burst of unspeakable pain spread all over the limbs, and then he looked down at his chest subconsciously. At the mouth of the heart, an invisible sword was completely submerged, and the blood spewed out. It is an unimaginable scene to cut off the body of Dian Immortal with the power of immortality. Qin Tuo wanted to fight back, but found that he couldn't do it even with a single finger. His own power seemed to have found a catharsis, madly used from the broken heart. But Jian Wushuang's eyes were still calm and cold, as if killing a Dian Immortal was a simple matter for him. "Tell you, I will spare you the whereabouts of the 3 Yangtzeans," he said indifferently, his voice beyond doubt. The intense crisis of annihilation made Qin Tuo horrified. He opened his mouth. "They are all." He didn't finish saying this sentence. He suddenly changed his expression, savagely. "Want to know their whereabouts? Then go with them." Jian Wushuang realized what was wrong, but it was too late. A Dian Immortal, the power that burst out at the time of life and death, was far beyond imagination. Qin Tuo directly embraced him and rushed into the void. There, hovering aside of the eye wheel, the huge dark red eye wheel, exuding a bewildering general trend, it is extremely curious. Chapter 50-60. It's like crashing into the water, rippling layers. Qin Tuo pushed Jian Wushuang, plunged into the huge eyes, and disappeared. His eyes were round, and billions of dark red blood burst out. Under this glow, Chen Qing, Chuanqiu, and Ji Yuting couldn't make any progress, so they could only fight hard in place. "His mother, I am dead today, and I have to go in too." Chen Qing shouted hoarsely against his blood. The immortal styles came out together, withstanding the great pressure for a while, and then Chen Qing and Chun Qiu plunged into the eye wheel without any hesitation. Ji Yuting fought a cold fight, and various complex expressions flashed on his face. After a while, he gritted his teeth abruptly. "Wait for me, I am here too." "Here, isn't it the inner world of the eye chakra?" The echo was so ethereal and ethereal. Looking into the eyes, this is a mysterious world, everything is made up of extremely clear mirrors. At this moment, Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Ji Yuting stand in the world made up of mirrors, with dignified eyes. "Where do you think Brother Jian will be?" Chun Qiu said worriedly. "Don't worry, that guy won't be able to use the sword, brother, for a while." Chen Qing said relievedly. "We have to figure out what this place is now." At this moment, Ji Yuting, who hadn't spoken for a long time, spoke, and his voice trembled slightly. "Have you noticed any different changes behind you?" Chen Qinghe Chuanqiu was puzzled, and turned his head to look subconsciously. Behind them, 3 figures emerged from the world in the mirror. And after seeing the faces of the 3 figures, even in the relatively calm spring and autumn period, I couldn't help but explode. How could this be us? The three figures that emerged from the world in the mirror are the same as those of Chen Qing, Chun Qiu, and Ji Yu Ting, and they are exactly the same, even their walking posture is exactly the same. It is precisely because of this that Chun Qiu is instantly alert. There is weirdness here. I am afraid these guys have been copied, be careful. Chun Qiu warned in a low voice. In the next moment, the three figures who walked out of the world in the mirror moved, rushing in instantly like a ghost. Be careful. Chen Qing shouted angrily, and then released the Yanli barrier with 5 fingers and halberds. But on the other side, the headed Chen Qing also moved. He also raised his arm and exploded with a violent and swift force. The 6 body shapes started fighting. At the same time, Jian Wushuang, who was dragged into the world of eyes by Qin Tuo, also encountered this kind of crisis. Qin Tuo didn't know where he had disappeared. Instead, he was replaced by a heightened face, all the same as Jian Wushuang. He frowned and stepped back into a defensive posture. And that Jian Wushuang had no wave of brows and eyes, and between the palms of his hands, an invisible sword exuding a touch of golden light appeared. Jian Wushuang raised his brows. He didn't expect that this image could actually condense an invisible sword. The invisible sword is his kendo transformation, and the image can condense the invisible sword. Then it also indicates that Wushuang Kendo has also been controlled. The whole cards are known before they have played against each other, which is extremely tricky for Jian Wushuang. Sure enough, the image of Jian Wushuang has already released the sword intent when the pure golden meaning of Wushuang swordsmanship rises vertically. Unparalleled Kendo, the first style of the galaxy. Star. A sword cut straight, breaking the sky and the earth. The void was cut open by a sky, and the mirror under his feet was instantly shattered, but it was recovering at a faster speed. Jian Wushuang never thought that one day he would feel the taste of his own kendo. Thousands of sky-reaching red golden beams burst, and endless sword intent swept into them. He also moved at this moment. The same is the first style of Wushuang Kendo. A more magnificent and wanton sword intent rises vertically and horizontally, covering the sky and the sun, and the sword intent is brilliant. The two collided, and the great fluctuations directly swept across the sky. Rumble, the mirror world began to collapse and shattered, tearing out the cracks in the sky. The sword intents cancel each other out and vanish. When the dust and smoke dissipated, they looked at each other. Jian Wushuang didn't expect that the image would have copied Wushuang Kendo's books without weakening the power. This is undoubtedly more tricky. If you continue to fight, I am afraid you will fall into stalemate and passivity. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang planned to leave directly. But the image seemed to know his intentions, and directly released the second style of Wushuang Kendo. River. As the second style of Wushuang Kendo, the sword meaning of river is the strongest sword besides the sword meaning of lake. Hundreds of thousands of strands of sword intent condensed into a towering tianhe, swept down from the void. This tianhe was so prosperous that it blocked the void, and the terrifying sword intent made everything tremble. This sword is the sword of the pinnacle. Jian Wushuang stared, he felt the crisis. The next moment, he also moved. The red gold sword intent was brilliant, rising from his body, quickly converging into a tianhe, and suddenly rushing forward. 2 heavenly rivers, 2 rivers of sword intent, completely collided and broke out. This is the absolute sword intent, enough to easily tear any heavenly plane, even Dian Immortal can never bear it. The speed of repairing the mysterious world in the mirror couldn't keep up with the speed of destruction. In just an instant, the whole world fell apart. As the fragments flew, the sword intent of the river word dissipated, and the image of Jian Wushuang retreated 100 feet. Jian Wushuang was also quite uncomfortable, and the blood surged in the Xian's body, threatening to suffer severe damage. The pressure of Wushuang Kendo was almost unbearable even for him. The damage to the image is obviously more serious, and blood has been spilled from the wound. Death-seeking behavior, Jian Wushuang said coldly. And the image seemed to be fully restored in a short time, looking at him coldly. Then, a bright golden glow quietly rose from the image, and quickly lifted into the sky, turning into thousands of threads of red gold tassels. Jian Wushuang's eyes condensed suddenly, and his steady heart throbbed at this moment. The image turned out to be the strongest sword intended to completely release Wushuang Kendo. Lake-style sword meaning is a sword beyond imagination. It is unstoppable, unable to contend, and can only choose to endure a sword. Once the lake-style sword intent appears again, the consequences will be unimaginable. At the beginning, Jian Wushuang used his own power to cross-border to kill Chang Duoling, the Nine Heavens Immortal Monarch, who was already the third-rank Dayan Immortal, and he used the lake-shaped sword intent. One sword kills 3 ranks, already can't imagine. No matter how strong Jian Wushuang is, he is still an immortal after all. Facing the lake-shaped sword intent, he is not sure that he can take it. The radiant red-golden flower has turned into hundreds of thousands of tassels, building a heavenly gate. The image of Jian Wushuang was wrapped in Jin Mang, his face was deep and cold, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. But then, his expression suddenly changed, and an incredible expression appeared. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.